What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So the other day, we had some controversy hit Nintendo online. Go figure what else is new, but in this case, it was confirmation around Nintendo deciding not to put a certain character into Fortnite, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about the ESA and them responding to the entire situation around some of these online games like The Crew being shut down and pulled out of people's libraries after they've paid for them, and then we're also be talking about a really cool modification for the Wii that shrinks it down to the point where its size actually rivals a stack of playing cards. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early and ad-free. If you would like to learn more about that and support the channel further, you can click the join button down below this video. And we're going to start today with Perfect Dark, a game that many people have forgotten is indeed in development because, well, it was revealed to us years ago in a cinematic trailer. But yes, we are waiting to see the initiative resurface with the latest entry in the Perfect Dark series. And based on a new job listing, it looks like we could have a 60 FPS mode, and this we can see posted up. This was spotted over on Twisted Voxel with a technical art director for the initiative, and it being pointed out that they are hiring with performance and quality engine modes for work and technical experience there. And I mean, Perfect Dark's a shooter, so I would like to think that they are at least planning around the idea of there being a 60 FPS mode for it, because shooters locked at 30 frames, not the greatest feeling experiences. I mean, Redfall did it and it was a whole thing, and I think rightfully so. First-person shooters or even third-person shooters are just better off having that more fluid 60 FPS attached to it. So I'm hoping this is an indication of things to come where we do have a quality and performance mode, lower the settings, resolution, whatever you have to do, because 60 FPS, to me anyway, is critical for a shooter like this, and hopefully we will see this appear again here soon. That June showcase is coming up, and that's kind of where I'm thinking we could see it again in some capacity. Not necessarily coming out this year, but at least just show us exactly what they've been up to this whole time since they first revealed it. Also, it does appear that Sega is working on the follow-up to Sonic Frontiers. Shocking, I know, but we can see this is posted up over on X. This from Cinero says Sonic Frontiers 2 is reportedly, via Daniel RPK, in development. And this kind of just floated out there until Midori came in saying, this is correct information. As we've seen in the past, people pretty much follow Midori completely as they have a very good track record, especially when it comes to things with Sega and Atlas, right? So I mean, is anyone surprised that Sega would be working on a follow-up to Sonic Frontiers? Sold well enough for them, and I looked at it as a game that is a good first step. Like, they have the foundation and the ideas there. They just need to continue building on it and hopefully making it so you can see things that are like 8 feet in front of you. The pop-in that game will never not be funny and ridiculous, but I do think that open zone concept they came up with, Sonic sort of in that 3D space, these big open areas, rail grinding, platforming, I think that, again, the structure is there. They just need to continue building on it. And it's not shocking to hear that, yes, Sonic Frontiers 2 will probably happen in a couple of years, I think. Not that it'll be called Sonic Frontiers 2, I think it'll be called something else, but it makes sense that they would continue on with sort of that franchise. And yeah, that probably means that Sonic Adventure 3 won't be happening for a long time. In fact, they still need to work on, I think, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 as a collection, bare minimum. But yeah, Sonic Frontiers 2 coming up here, probably in a bit, go figure. Oh, and we did get a new firmware update for the Switch, this over on Nintendo's website. It's version 18.0.1. Not much to really go over. You know, we have the standard general system stability improvements, always fun to see that. And then they had some network stuff here, fixed an issue where some wireless access points cannot be found when setting up a new wireless network. So there we go. Now, these updates for firmware really haven't been interesting for a while now, and I think people are just expecting Nintendo at this time to have shifted focus behind the scenes on working on a lot of the firmware and OS for the next system. Just in that in-between time, mostly general system stability and any bugs they have to patch in this case for wireless networking. So there you go. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo denying Samus going into Fortnite, because now we have a reason for that. well, at least one that was shared by a former executive at Epic Games. But if you're unaware, this is something we had talked about previously, as it was seemingly pointed out in some of those court documents that got out there when it was Apple versus Epic. There was a lot of stuff from just the games industry in general that was sort of aired out during that trial. One of them, though, did talk about some of the guest characters that Epic was exploring, and one of them was indeed having the Metroid franchise be represented in Fortnite by way of Samus. And it's not shocking to think about this, since Fortnite has just guest characters across all of pop culture, entertainment, everything. So sure, it makes sense to have Samus go in. I mean, Samus has a blaster and would probably work really well, actually, in Fortnite. But it didn't happen, and now we know exactly why. This was posted up originally. We can see this was from GameFile. I'll have that link down below with the full interview, as well as Nintendo Life, who pointed out the quote here. This is from Epic's former CCO, Donald Mustard, saying they, or Nintendo, got really hung up on their characters showing up on platforms that weren't their platforms. They would be thrilled to have Nintendo characters in Fortnite, but just only if it's on their platform. You know, I am curious, let's say Fortnite was specifically a mobile game that was also on the Switch, like it was just a game that was shared between the two technically, and there weren't other platforms, even PC involved, in like an alternate universe. And Nintendo would have been okay with that, since they themselves have put their own characters just on mobile phones. But nonetheless, this isn't shocking at all, because they've done this multiple times in the past, and that's one of the reasons we figured this was the reason that really Metroid didn't find its way into Fortnite. So if you look at Rocket League, Nintendo has like skins, Mario skins for the cars, but you can't see them on other platforms. With Minecraft, there's an entire suite of like Mario themed materials and worlds, but it's only for the Switch. If you go back to the GameCube, they let Link be in the game for Soul Calibur 2, but it was only on the GameCube. Now they had guest characters for other platforms and stuff, but you kind of get the idea. This is a long-running practice for Nintendo, so it's not shocking that part of the negotiation was, look, you can have Samus in Fortnite, but it's only for the Switch version of Fortnite. That's it. And it's pretty clear Epic, they want to keep Fortnite the same as much as possible across all platforms, and that includes guest characters, and that's why things like Kratos and Master Chief are just available across all these different platforms. And it's kind of weird to look at, because it sort of, in a way, brings all these platforms together in ways you wouldn't expect before, with these IPs kind of going cross-platform, but that's just kind of the way they wanted to set this up, and that's one of the reasons that, well, Nintendo and them, I guess, clashed, and Epic was like, we're not going to do it otherwise, and, well, there you go. Metroid missed out on what a lot of people are saying, of course, being massive exposure, and, I mean, it's hard to argue. It would be a lot of exposure for the Metroid franchise, one that, I mean, broke its own franchise record for sales recently with Metroid Dread crossing the 3 million mark. That's the highest we've seen the franchise sell, so it's not necessarily in line with really any of other Nintendo's top tier franchises, what that's been able to sell, or even like the series below that, or the franchise below that. It's unfortunate. That's just kind of where Metroid is when you go through the rankings of Nintendo's IPs. So, of course, the argument has been, would Samus being included as a guest character in the Metroid franchise in Fortnite given a boost to just any of these games, or just the intellectual property itself and its awareness across the board? And it wouldn't hurt the franchise, obviously. It's like we heard about Fortnite when they went back to their classic stuff, had over 40 million concurrent players on in one day. Is that a bad thing that they might see Samus there? Sure, I get it. People are like, oh, it's doing all these weird emojis and dancing and stuff. That's annoying. That's not how the franchise is supposed to be. But it's the idea of maybe a younger audience even that's coming up that obviously likes Fortnite would see Metroid and Samus and maybe look further into it. And, oh yeah, okay, there's Metroid Prime Remastered, there's Metroid Dread, here comes Metroid Prime 4. Again, having a boost like that wouldn't hurt a franchise right now that is just trying to push through the 3 million, 4 million mark in terms of sales. But it's Nintendo. They draw the line in the sand, and that's just kind of the way they've operated really since the beginning of time for them. So unfortunate, I think, because it's just another avenue for Metroid to kind of get out there, and it's a franchise I would like to see succeed further. But at this point, we'll see if maybe Nintendo themselves can push Metroid to new heights with Metroid Prime 4, and that's kind of what I'm looking at as being a big jumping off point for the franchise. Here's hoping that's something that maybe is able to make it out this holiday, or at the very least the first half of next year. Next up, let's talk about a report that I'll admit makes me shake my head a little bit here, but it has to do with Helldivers 2 going to Xbox. And it's not necessarily the concept of that happening, because I do think Helldivers 2 is a live service game that is going to continue on for Sony for quite some time. But it's more or less some of the finer details around this report, which we can see. This is posted up by Insider Gaming, where they say on the most recent episode of the Xbox Era podcast, it was suggested during the Rumor Mill segment that talks are underway to bring Helldivers 2 to the Xbox Series X and S platform. Now, this exploded online. There was a lot of discussion around this, and as I look more into it, I see that it's early talks of Helldivers 2 going to the Xbox Series platform, and these are talks that very much could just dissolve very quickly. We just talked about Metroid. That maybe, like, could Samus go into Fortnite? Those would have been early talks that obviously never materialized any further than that. And that's kind of how I'm looking at this. It's like, okay, this could legitimately go either way, and now it's kind of just put out there as, yes, a discussion point online, but one that might just never happen. However, I do see Helldivers 2 for Sony right now, based on the success for it so far with them and Arrowhead, as maybe being a 10-year live service project. I mean, seriously, it has continued its momentum past that usual point where there's a massive drop-off for just player retention. People are still playing the game in droves, and this is one that they have actually done pretty well updating consistently going forward. So who knows, in 5 or 6 years, the thing could end up on just Microsoft's ecosystem as a way to reach more people. Why not? That's the idea of live service games. I get the idea of trying to sell consoles by way of exclusives, but it's on PC now. It probably will eventually get ported over through a remaster or just a PS6 version. I mean, if Microsoft's still pushing things out there with maybe a handheld and a new suite of systems, why not have Helldivers 2 ready to go there and take advantage of that user base, kind of bring them in to see that concurrent player count push. But it's very, very early here, and that's one of the reasons I'm like, I don't know if this is something that really even needs to be discussed too much. But yeah, that's what's going on currently. Early talks for Helldivers 2 going to the Xbox Series, or who knows, whatever Microsoft has planned next, the Xbox Series XXX. Next up, let's talk about the ESA pushing back on the idea of game preservation for these online games. Think of what we've been dealing with currently with The Crew, how that went offline, and then Ubisoft went into people's digital libraries and started just revoking ownership for the game, just basically just taking it out of your library completely. Well, now the ESA is sort of being quizzed and asked about the idea of some of these online games being backed up and preserved maybe by libraries. Well, we can see this is posted up by VGC. They say ESA lawyer Steve Ungland was asked about a theoretical scenario in which public libraries were permitted to preserve online video games after official support had concluded. In response, they said there was currently no combination of limitations ESA members would support to provide remote access. They've also gone on here kind of discussing the fact that, hey, look, security, logistics, all these sorts of things around backing up at a public library is not necessarily feasible at this time, but and really the ESA representing major platform holders, major publishers, so Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, EA, Take-Two, Ubisoft, the list goes on and on and on, right? Why would they want to have to go through all those hoops? What is it that really benefits them in that scenario, other than they have to spend more time in development so that, okay, in 10 years, if this service is offline, we had a great run, we still have to figure out a way to make sure it is patched so that it works in some capacity. Whether it's The Crew, you have a city you can still drive around with your car. Maybe we open it up for private server access because, oh, we figured all that out in development. Just adds more and more variables to the situation, which costs more and more money. And for them, it's probably easier to shut down, like let's say there's a sequel, right? Like The Crew 2. We want you to go to The Crew 2. We don't want to play The Crew 1 anymore. We take away The Crew 1. Well, guess what? There's Crew 2. There's a lot of reasons why this works completely in the favor of these publishers and platform holders. So that way they can kind of control what you have access to at any given time. Even Nintendo. Really fun to play Mario 35. Really was fun to play Mario 35 as your subscription service for Nintendo Switch Online. So it kind of being a situation where right now the publishers and the platform owners don't have to worry about any of this is just beneficial to them. And the ESA, obviously, they're going to push back on the idea of the opposite. So really at this time, more pressure needs to be put on the ESA and then also on legislators because the digital era is coming. I think we all kind of understand and see the writing on the wall, and now we have to shift to trying to figure out consumer rights in the digital era. But you're not really going to get it easily from the ESA. You're probably going to have to go past them to the legislators, and that's why the Stop Killing Games movement is so important and why I recommend everyone look into that and see what you can do on your end, as they do make it easy to get a hold of any representatives in your area that can help make a difference around this. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a really fun modding project that's been making the rounds this week, as it takes the already small Wii and makes it even smaller. In fact, it's to the point now where it's about the size of a stack of playing cards. This is posted up, we can see, over on GitHub. It's from Loop J, and it's titled Short Stack. Now you can see the Wii here, it's zoomed in, but it has like the side off to at least give you an idea of some of the components and setup that they have, with the fan at the back, nice large aluminum heatsink, and then even at the top here, well, kind of on the side when it's laying down, we have some pretty small connections. Those are actually for the GameCube controller ports, so technically that all still works. You need a bit of an adapter where it plugs into like a kind of like a 3.5-inch or 3.5mm headphone jack looking thing. But some of the comparison shots here are legitimately impressive. Same size as typical deck of playing cards, 7.4% the volume of an original Wii. They say you could fit 13 and a half of these inside an original Wii, so you kind of get the idea of just how small this thing is. It's even now powered by USB-C, so obviously much better than having to deal with the standard brick adapter. Has Bluetooth for Wii remotes and accessories. Micro SD card stores games and saves, so you're not going to be using the disk drive if that wasn't already obvious, since the disc itself is probably larger, I guess, than the console at that point. Still has power reset sync buttons. There's an indicator LED and that iconic blue glowing disc slot. So you would be using this obviously with a soft modded Wii in order to load all of your games from an SD card. And the way that they got it to this point, they did trim down the Wii motherboard, which is it's a scary thing to deal with because you do cut the Wii motherboard legitimately with a Dremel. But if you do it right, you relocate everything, as they have some of the screenshots here, you can eventually get to a position where, yes, you have a Wii stuffed inside of a case the size of a couple of playing cards. Now, the best part of this entire project is they open source the whole thing. It's all released. So if you have the ability, you have the skills, you can try to build this thing. They even have it broken down to build of materials, everything you'll need line by line. They have the assembly up here. So really, really cool stuff. And it's a lot of fun when they put these projects out there for other people to try. Will I be trying it? I don't know, maybe. It could be a fun video, although that would certainly take some time to get done. But hey, then we'll have a really small Wii system, and I'm sure there are many people out there asking, what's the point? Why would you do this? And the answer for why is because they can. That's pretty much it. Hey, I guess it travels better, technically, if it's the size of I mean, that's really the answer for a lot of these modding projects, case mods, handheld setups. It's just because you can. And really the journey is the part that's the most fun. But I guess, hey, when you get to the other end of it, you have a very small system that you can tuck away in an entertainment center a lot easier. But yeah, go check it out. The Short Stack, I'll have it linked below in the sources. And before we go to the comments of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, will Perfect Dark be at Microsoft's June showcase? 79% said no. Wow. All right, 21% say yes. I think it's time to see the initiative again. I don't think they're going to give us a release date. I don't think they're going to give us a release window. I think it's time to just see Perfect Dark, at least give us an idea as to what we're dealing with. Whether it's like, oh, is this first person, third person, a mix of both? We have at least an idea of some of the story stuff. It's been a while, okay? We're going to see Gear 6, that's expected, but I feel like Perfect Dark should be there as well. Start setting up the next couple of years for the Xbox brand, and I think Perfect Dark is going to be a very important part of that, as the initiative is a studio that Microsoft formed from the ground up and is currently working with Crystal Dynamics to get this game to the finish line. So here's hoping they're ready to at least show something here in a month or two. And we'll finish up with the comments of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Ozloner, says, let's appreciate the fact that John isn't holding the lapel mic like a regular microphone while giving us the gaming news. So you'll have to let me know if this makes me look more relatable. I feel like I'm just showing you that I own a lapel mic, right? Like we've just confirmed that I own one of these, but I guess If I ever get to 1 million subscribers, we'll look back and know that it's because the lapel mic came out at the end of a Newswave episode. And then we'll go over to a comment from the members video. This is from a Brilliant who says, background isn't working still. Yeah, unfortunate. Still looking at this, but I think Microsoft has all the IPs to make a successful VR kit. Can you imagine Halo or Gears of War in VR? Halo would make sense because like all these Halo games, you would sort of wake up as the Master Chief and they would do a lot of effects where it feels like you're kind of wearing your helmet, you know, or they would even show bits and pieces of it where like the visor would have a reflection. And there were a lot of things they did to try to remind you that you were inside a Spartan suit of armor. So I think Halo would make a ton of sense for VR. I guess Gears too, but Halo seems like the obvious thing. If Microsoft ever wanted to try to make their own VR headset to work into their ecosystem for Game Pass and Xbox. Will they ever do it? It's hard to say, but I wouldn't mind at least seeing them take a shot. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. There's Nintendo denying Samus going into Fortnite. You think that was a good idea, or was it a bad idea and a missed opportunity for Nintendo? Or what about the ESA pushing back on the idea of game preservation for some of these online-only games? And the Wii becoming the short stack. Are you interested in trying that project out at home? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.